Commander Jake Morrison stood in the bright white chamber of the Galactic Council Station. The room was huge, bigger than any building he had ever seen on Earth. Strange lights floated in the air, casting rainbow colors on the walls. Around him, creatures from across the galaxy sat in their special seats, each one designed for their different body shapes. Jake's heart was beating fast. This was the 7th time humans had asked to join the Galactic Trade Federation. The 7th time they had come here, hoping to be accepted as equals among the stars. But as he looked at the alien faces staring back at him, he already knew what the answer would be. The Zephyrians spoke first. These beings looked like living crystals, their bodies making soft musical sounds when they moved. Their leader, a tall figure that sparkled like a diamond, used a translation device to speak in English. The application of the human species is rejected, the crystal being said. Its voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. Your kind is to violent, to unpredictable. You fight wars over small differences. You destroy your own planet for short-term gain. Jake kept his face calm, but inside he felt anger building. He had spent 20 years in space, working to prove that humans could be peaceful. He had followed every rule, every protocol the aliens had given them. He had learned their languages, studied their customs, and tried to show them that humanity deserved a place among the stars. Dr. Lisa Carter watched from the visitor area. She was Earth's best expert on alien life, and she had worked with these creatures for 15 years. She knew their habits, their ways of thinking, and their body language. Right now, she could see that none of them respected humans at all. The HFY representative spoke next. This creature looked like a giant octopus with blue skin and silver eyes. Its tentacles moved in patterns that Lisa had learned meant disgust. Your species is too short-lived, the HFY said through its water-filled speaking tank. We live for thousands of years. We think in centuries, not decades. How can we make long-term plans with beings who die so quickly? Your minds are too small to understand the bigger picture. Jake wanted to argue. He wanted to tell them about human achievements, about the great art and music and science that his species had created in their brief lives. But he knew it would not matter. These beings had already made up their minds. The worst was yet to come. The Sil hegemony had controlled the major trade routes for over 10,000 years. Their representative was a large reptile with scales that changed color when it spoke. Ambassador Vextalar was known for his harsh words, and today would be no different. Your species is bound to gravity, the reptile said, its forked tongue tasting the air. You need heavy ships to carry you between worlds. You need thick atmosphere to breathe. You need specific temperatures to survive. The void between stars is harsh and empty. It is not meant for creatures like you. The ambassador's scales turned dark red as it continued. You are primitive. Your technology is crude. Your understanding of the universe is limited. Why should we allow you to compete with civilizations that have mastered space travel for millions of years? Back on Earth's moon, Captain Ryan Brooks watched the meeting through a video link. The lunar base was humanity's most advanced outpost, but compared to the alien station where Jake stood, it looked like a simple cave. Round Ryan, the best scientists and engineers humanity had to offer sat in silence. Engineer Amy Walsh had spent her whole life working on better space engines. Her fusion drives were the most advanced propulsion system humans had ever built. But the aliens had technology that could cross the galaxy in days, while human ships took months just to reach the nearest star. This is not fair, Amy whispered, her hands shaking with anger. We have followed their rules for 70 years. We have proven that we can be peaceful. We have shown them our science, our culture, our art. What more do they want? Dr. Peter Kane, the team's physics expert, stared at the star map on the wall. It showed the territories controlled by different alien species. The Zephyrians controlled thousands of systems in the galactic north. The HFY dominated the water worlds of the spiral arms. The Sil hegemony held the rich systems near the galactic core. Humanity's territory was barely visible on the map. Earth, Mars, and a few mining stations in the asteroid belt. That was all they had been allowed to claim. Even though humans had the technology to travel to other stars, the aliens had forbidden it. Any human ship that left the solar system without permission would be destroyed. Look at this, Peter said, pointing to the map. They have divided up the entire galaxy among themselves. There is no room for new species, no matter how peaceful or advanced we become. They see us as a threat to their ancient empires. The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as the final vote was taken. One by one, each species registered their decision. The Zephyrians voted no. The Aquari voted no. The Sil voted no. 12 other species followed their lead. Ambassador Vextalar delivered the final statement. The decision is unanimous. Humanity is not ready for membership in the Galactic Trade Federation. Your application is rejected. You will remain restricted to your home system until such time as your species demonstrates the maturity necessary for interstellar civilization. Jake Morrison felt something break inside him. Not his spirit, but his faith in diplomacy. For 70 years, humanity had tried to prove themselves worthy of acceptance. They had followed alien laws, traded only in approved markets, and limited their expansion to what the aliens permitted. And for what? To be told they were too primitive, too violent, too short-lived to matter. Thank you for your time, Jake said, his voice steady despite the rage building in his chest. Humanity will consider your decision carefully. As the holographic images of the alien council members faded away, Jake stood alone in the chamber. But he was not really alone. Millions of humans across the solar system had watched this rejection. They had seen how their best efforts at peace and cooperation had been dismissed. Back on the lunar base, the silence was broken by Amy Walsh's voice. 70 years of begging for scraps from their table, she said. 70 years of proving we are not a threat, and they still see us as nothing more than animals who learn to use tools. Captain Ryan Brooks looked around the room at the faces of his team. These were not the faces of defeated people. These were the faces of humans who had been pushed too far. Commander Morrison is right, Ryan said. We need to consider our options carefully. But maybe it is time to stop asking for permission to exist. Dr. Lisa Carter's voice came through the communication system from the alien station. The meeting is over. Jake is on his way back. But I think we all know what this means. They will never accept us as equals. The question is, what are we going to do about it? As Jake Morrison's ship began its journey back to Earth, he stared out at the stars. Somewhere out there were worlds that could support human life, resources that could fuel human civilization, space enough for humanity to grow and thrive. The aliens said humans did not belong among the stars. They said the void was not meant for creatures like them. But Jake Morrison had spent his life in space, and he knew better. The universe was vast and full of possibilities. Maybe it was time for humanity to stop asking permission and start taking what they needed to survive. The rejection hurt, but it also freed them. No more following alien rules. No more waiting for permission. No more accepting limits imposed by species who saw them as inferior. It was time for humanity to forge its own path among the stars. 6 months had passed since the Galactic Council's rejection. In that time, everything had changed for humanity. Deep in the asteroid belt, hidden from alien surveillance, the largest construction project in human history was taking shape. Admiral Kate Sullivan floated in the zero-gravity assembly bay of the secret shipyard. Around her, 1,000 men and women worked in perfect silence, their movements graceful in the weightless environment. These were not the sleek diplomatic vessels that had carried human ambassadors to alien worlds. These were warships. The flagship of humanity's new fleet hung in the center of the massive bay. The Defiant was ugly by alien standards. Where alien ships were smooth and elegant, human ships were covered in armor plating and weapon systems. Where alien vessels relied on energy shields and advanced materials, human ships were built to take damage and keep fighting. They told us we were too primitive for their galaxy, Admiral Sullivan said, her voice carrying clearly through the communication system. They said we were too violent, too unpredictable, too bound to our gravity wells. Today we proved them wrong on all counts. The crew members floating around her came from every nation on Earth. There was Ben Rodriguez, the engineer from Mexico who had designed the new construction systems. Nicole Adams from Canada, who had plotted courses to star systems the aliens had never bothered to explore. Captain Steve Parker from Australia, who would command the first colony ship. We are not asking permission anymore, Admiral Sullivan continued. We are not begging for acceptance. We are taking our place among the stars, whether they like it or not. Chief Engineer Ben Rodriguez had worked without sleep for weeks to convert asteroid mining equipment into something far more powerful. His mobile construction platforms could turn raw rock into finished spacecraft in a matter of days. More importantly, they could do it anywhere there was material to work with. The aliens think in terms of established trade routes and controlled resources. Ben explained to his team of engineers, they fight over planets that are already developed, systems that are already mapped, but space is full of resources they have ignored. Dead systems with unstable stars, asteroid fields with dangerous radiation, rogue planets floating in the void between stars. Navigation Officer Nicole Adams had spent months studying star charts that the aliens had dismissed as worthless. Her computer screen showed dozens of systems that were marked as uninhabitable or economically non-viable by the Galactic Council. They see obstacles where we see opportunities, Nicole said, pointing to a system with a dying star. This system has enough heavy metals in its asteroid belt to build 1,000 ships. The radiation from the star makes it dangerous for most alien species, but humans can work there with proper shielding. The first wave of colony ships was already loaded and ready to launch. Unlike the slow, careful expansion the aliens had permitted, this would be fast and aggressive. 50 ships would carry volunteers to 25 different systems, establishing human presence across a wide area of space. Captain Steve Parker walked through the corridors of his colony ship, checking on the 10,000 people who had volunteered. For this mission, they knew they might never see Earth again. They knew they would face dangers that no human had ever encountered. But they also knew they were making history. My grandfather fought in World War II, said Maria Santos, a young woman from Spain who had signed up to be a colonist. He used to tell me that freedom is never given freely. It has to be earned, sometimes with blood. I think he would understand what we are doing here. Dr. Helen Cruz, the mission's expert on alien geology, had identified the most promising targets for human expansion. Her reports painted a picture of worlds that would be challenging, but not impossible to settle. The aliens prefer worlds that are easy to live on, Helen explained to a group of colonists, planets with breathable atmospheres, comfortable temperatures, and existing ecosystems. But humans evolved to adapt to harsh environments. We can live in places that would kill most alien species. The launch preparations were carried out in complete secrecy. Earth's governments had not officially approved this mission. As far as the aliens knew, humanity was still following the restrictions placed on them after their rejection from the Galactic Council. But the truth was different. In boardrooms and military headquarters around the world, human leaders had made a decision. If they could not join the galactic community as equals, they would build their own community. President Wilson of the United States had put it simply, we cannot allow our species to be caged in our own solar system. If the price of freedom is war, then we will pay that price. The technology that made this expansion possible had been developed in secret over many years. Dr. Sarah Kim, working with a team of physicists, had perfected the Alcubierre drive system that could push human ships faster than anything the aliens had seen. They think they know what humans are capable of, Dr. Kim said as she ran final tests on the drive systems. They have only seen our diplomatic ships, designed to meet their safety standards and follow their flight paths. They have never seen what we can build when we stop trying to impress them. The weapons systems were equally revolutionary. Engineer Chris Murphy had developed kinetic bombardment systems that could turn asteroids into guided missiles. The aliens had never seen weapons like these because they relied on energy shields that were useless against solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. We are not trying to match their technology, Chris explained to the weapons crews. We are developing our own technology based on human understanding of physics and human approaches to problem solving. Let them try to defend against weapons they have never imagined. As the launch day approached, Admiral Sullivan addressed the entire fleet one final time. The crews of 50 ships listened as she explained what they were about to do. For 70 years, we have played by their rules, she said. We have accepted their limitations, followed their protocols, and begged for their approval. Today, that ends. Today, we write our own rules. The first ships began to move out of the hidden shipyard. Their destinations were scattered across dozens of light years, chosen specifically because the aliens had written them off as worthless. But humans had a different definition of worthless. Captain Parker's ship was among the first to engage its Alcubierre drive. As the stars began to stretch into lines of light, he thought about the message they were sending to the galaxy. We were not invited to your party, he said to his navigation officer, so we are starting our own. Back on Earth, the alien monitoring stations detected the massive energy signatures of the launching fleet. Within hours, the Galactic Council would know that humanity had violated the restrictions placed on them. Admiral Sullivan smiled as she watched the last ship disappear into faster-than-light travel. Let the aliens complain. Let them threaten. Humanity was no longer asking for permission. The message was already being broadcast on all frequencies in all the major galactic languages. It was simple and direct, to the Galactic Council and all member species. Humanity has been denied membership in your organization 7 times. We have been told we are too primitive, too violent, and too short-lived for civilized society. We have been restricted to our home system and forbidden to expand. Today, we reject your authority over our species. We claim the right to settle any uninhabited system, to defend ourselves against any threat, and to trade with any species willing to deal with us fairly. You said we did not belong in your galaxy. You were right. We do not belong in a galaxy where freedom must be begged for and equality is a privilege granted by ancient empires. We are building our own galaxy, one where species are judged by their actions, not their age. One where advancement comes from merit, not from political connections. One where the future belongs to those bold enough to claim it. The void between stars is vast and full of possibilities. It belongs to no one and everyone. We are claiming our share. This is not a declaration of war. This is a declaration of independence. Stay out of our way, and we will stay out of yours. But if you try to stop us, you will discover that humans can be far more dangerous than you ever imagined. The message was signed by Admiral Kate Sullivan, speaking for the United Colonial Fleet of Earth. As it spread across the galaxy at the speed of light, humanity's expansion had already begun. In systems the aliens had ignored, human ships were setting up construction platforms and defensive positions. The age of human expansion had begun, and there would be no stopping it now. 2 years had passed since humanity's declaration of independence. What had started as a desperate gamble was now becoming a reality that terrified the established powers of the galaxy. Human colonies were thriving in systems the aliens had dismissed as worthless, and their expansion showed no signs of slowing down. Captain Laura Bennett stood on the command deck of Defense Platform Alpha, orbiting the world humans had named Liberty. The planet below was harsh by alien standards, with a thin atmosphere and frequent radiation storms from its unstable star. But for humans who had learned to live in the vacuum of space, it was perfect. Her sensors showed 3 ships approaching from the direction of Zephyrian space. The crystalline vessels moved with the musical grace that marked their species. But Laura knew this was not a friendly visit. For months, alien reconnaissance fleets had been probing human defenses, testing their strength and resolve. Unknown vessels. This is Captain Bennett of the Liberty Defense Force. She broadcast on standard diplomatic frequencies. You are approaching a sovereign human colony. State your business or alter course immediately. The response came in the chiming tones of the Zephyrian language, translated by the ship's computer. Human vessel, you are occupying territory within the Zephyrian sphere of influence. This system was surveyed and claimed by our people over 3,000 years ago. Laura almost laughed. The Zephyrians had never bothered to visit this system. In all that time, their claim existed only on ancient star charts that bore no relation to reality. I see no Zephyrian colonies, no Zephyrian ships, no Zephyrian presence of any kind, Laura replied. Under human colonial law, this system was unclaimed and available for settlement. It now belongs to humanity. The lead Zephyrian ship began to move closer, its crystalline hull shimmering with what Laura recognized as weapon charging patterns. But she was not worried. Human defense platforms had been designed specifically to deal with alien technology. You will abandon this illegal settlement immediately, the Zephyrian commander transmitted. Your species lacks the authority to claim systems beyond your home territory. Laura's response was transmitted on all frequencies, ensuring that every ship in the system would hear it. This colony has been established under the laws of Earth and defended by the blood and sacrifice of 10,000 human volunteers. You are free to file a complaint with someone who cares. The confrontation lasted only minutes. When the Zephyrian ships began charging their crystal-based weapons, Laura activated the defense grid that engineer Chris Murphy had spent months perfecting. Kinetic bombardment satellites launched tungsten rods at incredible speed, while energy shields converted the aliens' attacks into power for the colony's growing industrial base. The Zephyrian vessels, built for speed and elegance rather than combat, retreated quickly when they realized human weapons were unlike anything they had encountered. Their energy shields were useless against solid projectiles, and their own weapons only made the human Defenses stronger. That was easier than expected, said Lieutenant Danny Williams, Laura's tactical officer. Their ships are beautiful, but they are not built for real fighting. Do not underestimate them, Laura warned. They will return with friends, and next time they will be prepared. Send a message to Admiral Sullivan. Tell her the aliens are testing our defenses. The real war is coming soon. Deep in the Galactic Rim, Commander Dan Foster was overseeing humanity's most ambitious project. The Forge of Stars was a mobile shipyard larger than any space station the aliens had ever built. Constructed from the remains of a shattered planet, it could produce warships and colony vessels faster than entire alien civilizations. Status report, Dan said as he walked through the command center. Around him, thousands of humans and automated systems worked together to turn raw materials into the tools of human expansion. Production is ahead of schedule, reported Chief Engineer Lisa Parks. We completed 12 new colony ships this week, plus 6 destroyers and a heavy cruiser. The asteroid mining operations are bringing in more materials that we can process. The Forge represented everything that made human expansion possible, unlike the aliens, who relied on established industrial worlds and trade routes. Humans could build anywhere there was raw material. Dead systems that the aliens ignored became the foundation of human civilization. Dr. Maria Santos, the project's lead scientist, had made discoveries that changed everything humans knew about space travel. By studying the strange matter found in quantum storm systems, she had developed drive technology that made human ships faster than anything in the galaxy. The aliens built their civilization slowly. Over millions of years, Maria explained to a group of new technicians. They never had to innovate quickly or adapt to changing conditions. But humans developed all their technology in just a few thousand years. While fighting wars and surviving disasters, we are used to rapid change. Her breakthrough came from studying a phenomenon the aliens had labeled as cosmic hazard zone. The quantum storms that occurred near certain types of stars were dangerous to conventional ships. But Maria realized they could be harnessed as a power source. We are not trying to copy alien technology, she said as she showed the technicians her latest engine design. We are developing our own understanding of physics, based on human curiosity and human willingness to take risks. Colony Administrator Jeff Turner was dealing with different challenges on New Geneva, humanity's first major population center outside the solar system. The city housed over 1 million people and served as the unofficial capital of human space. We have requests from 17 different alien species to establish trade relations, Jeff told his council during their weekly meeting. Most of them come from species that the Galactic Council considers primitive or unsuitable for advanced civilization. The irony was not lost on anyone in the room. The same aliens who had rejected humanity were now eager to do business with human colonies. But these were not the powerful species that controlled the galaxy. These were the outcasts, the forgotten civilizations that had been denied membership in the galactic community. The Keth have offered to share their mining technology in exchange for protection from Sil Raiders, said Trade Minister Amy Chen. The Vorlok want to buy our defensive systems. Even some of the younger Zephyrian colonies are asking for human medical supplies. Jeff nodded thoughtfully. Human expansion had revealed something the established powers had tried to hide. The galaxy was full of species that were kept in line by fear and economic pressure. Many of them were eager to find alternatives to the ancient empires that controlled their lives. Accept all reasonable offers, Jeff decided, but make it clear that we do not recognize the authority of the Galactic Council. Any species that wants to trade with us must be prepared to defend their right to do so. The economic impact of human expansion was already being felt across the galaxy. Human industrial platforms produce goods at costs that undercut established manufacturers. More importantly, humans were willing to trade with any species that dealt fairly, regardless of their political status. Captain Susan Mitchell commanded one of the merchant vessels that carried human goods to alien worlds. Her ship, the Prosperity, was heavily armed and escorted by military vessels. But she had never needed to use her weapons. The aliens are surprised by our business practices, Susan explained to a group of new merchant captains. They are used to complex trade agreements, political requirements, and bribes to officials. We just ask for fair payment and honest dealing. The response from ordinary aliens was overwhelmingly positive. Workers who had spent their lives making goods for the benefit of their ruling classes suddenly had access to better tools and materials. Colonies that had been ignored by their home governments could now buy the technology they needed to improve their lives, but the ruling classes were becoming nervous. Human expansion threatened the careful balance of power that had kept the galaxy stable for millennia. More importantly, it showed ordinary aliens that there were alternatives to the ancient order. General Lisa Brown was preparing for the inevitable response. Her Void Guard was a military force unlike anything the galaxy had seen, combining human tactics with technology and volunteers from dozens of allied species. The aliens will try to stop us eventually, Lisa told her officers during a strategy meeting. They cannot allow human expansion to continue because it threatens everything their civilization is built on. The Guard's training facilities were located throughout human space, hidden in asteroid fields and constructed on airless moons. Unlike the rigid hierarchies of alien militaries, the Guard encouraged innovation and adaptation. We are not trying to build a bigger version of their armies, Lisa explained. We are building something new, a military that can learn, adapt, and overcome any challenge. As the third year of human expansion began, the statistics were impressive. Humanity had established permanent colonies in 43 systems. Their population in space had grown to over 10 million people. Their industrial capacity rivaled that of civilizations that had existed for thousands of years. But more importantly, they had proven that the galaxy did not belong to the ancient empires. There was room for new ideas, new approaches, and new civilizations willing to work for their place among the stars. Commander Jake Morrison, now serving as diplomatic liaison for the human colonies, received regular reports from across the galaxy. The messages painted a picture of change that accelerated with each passing month. Species that had been silent for centuries are starting to speak up, Jake told Admiral Sullivan during their weekly briefing. The Galactic Council is losing control of the narrative. Too many aliens have seen what human colonies can accomplish. The void that had once seemed empty and hostile was now filled with human ships, human stations, and human dreams, and at the center of it all was the simple truth that had started their expansion. The universe belonged to those bold enough to claim it. The message arrived at human colonies across the galaxy simultaneously. Admiral Tony His ready to board the Defiant, while his fleet prepared for what everyone knew would be the decisive battle of the war. The combined fleet of the Galactic Council demands the immediate surrender of all human forces and the evacuation of all illegal settlements, the transmission stated in the cold, formal language of galactic diplomacy. Failure to comply within 72 hours will result in the complete destruction of human military assets and the occupation of all human colonies. Tony looked around the bridge at his officers. These men and women had spent 3 years building humanity's space navy from nothing. They had fought skirmishes with alien patrol ships, defended colonies from raiders, and proven that human tactics could defeat alien technology. But they had never faced anything like what was coming. How many ships? Asked Captain Rachel Stone, his tactical officer. Intelligence reports over 1,000 vessels, Tony replied. Every major species contributed ships to what they are calling a police action. They want to make an example of us. The combined fleet was the largest military force assembled in over 1,000 years. The Sil hegemony had contributed their planet killers, massive ships designed to crack worlds open and strip them for resources. The Zephyrians brought reality-warping dreadnoughts that could bend space itself, species that humans had never encountered, sent their most advanced warships. Commander Sarah Davis coordinated the evacuation of civilians from Proxima Base, humanity's first interstellar colony. The world had grown from a small outpost to a fortress city with over 500,000 residents. Now those people were being loaded onto transport ships as fast as possible. We cannot evacuate everyone in time, Sarah told the colony administrator. The children and elderly are already aboard the transports, but we still have 200,000 people on the surface, the administrator, an older man named Robert Kim, shook his head. Then we fight. These people chose to come here knowing the risks. They will not abandon their homes without a battle. Sarah understood the feeling. Every human colony had been built by volunteers who knew they might never see Earth again. These were not people who gave up easily. The battle began when the alien fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Proxima system. The sight was terrifying even for experienced human officers. The alien ships stretched across space like a metal forest, their different designs reflecting millions of years of separate evolution. Admiral Hayes broadcast humanity's response on all frequencies. You came here to teach us our place in the universe. You brought your oldest ships and your most advanced weapons to crush a species you consider primitive. Let me show you what primitives can do when they fight for their survival. The first wave of human fighters launched from hidden bases throughout the system. Captain Mike Chen led Squadron Alpha, 12 small ships that looked like toys compared to the massive alien dreadnoughts. But size was not everything in space combat. Remember your training, Mike told his pilots as they accelerated toward the enemy fleet. Speed and maneuverability are our advantages. Hit them fast, hit them hard, and get out before they can target you. The human fighters darted between the alien ships like angry wasps, their weapons designed specifically to exploit weaknesses in alien defense systems. Energy shields that had protected alien ships for millennia were useless against human kinetic weapons. Armor that could withstand energy blasts cracked under the impact of tungsten rods. Moving at relativistic speeds, Dr. Kevin Ross watched the battle from the Command Center of Defense Platform 1. His artificial intelligence systems coordinated the movement of hundreds of human ships with inhuman precision, while maintaining the creativity and unpredictability that made human tactics so effective. The aliens fight like they have always fought, Kevin explained to his technical team. Their tactics have not changed in thousands of years because they never needed to change. But humans developed our fighting techniques while facing constantly changing enemies. The aliens had expected a conventional battle between fleets of large ships. Instead, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. Human ships appeared from behind asteroids, struck hard, and vanished before the aliens could respond. The turning point came when engineer Patricia Lee activated the weapon that human scientists had been building in secret for 2 years. The Prometheus device was based on theories that human physicists had developed in decades, rather than centuries, activating spatial distortion field. Patricia announced from her control station deep inside an asteroid. Around her, the massive machinery hummed with barely contained energy. The device created a localized space-time distortion that disabled half the alien fleet. In a single moment, ships that had been advancing suddenly found themselves moving backward. Weapons that had been aimed at human targets were now pointed at their own allies. The careful formation of the combined fleet collapsed into chaos. "What did you do?" demanded Admiral Hayes over the communication system. "I created a bubble of reverse time," Patricia explained, her voice filled with excitement despite the danger. "Everything inside the field experiences time flowing backward. For exactly 60 seconds, their ships are trying to undo the last minute of their actions. The aliens had never encountered anything like it. Their understanding of physics was based on millions of years of gradual development. They had learned to use the forces of nature, but they had never learned to bend the fundamental laws of reality. As alien ships began to retreat or surrender, Admiral Hayes broadcast a message that would be remembered throughout galactic history. His words were transmitted to every ship in the system and relayed to alien worlds across the galaxy. "You came here to teach us our place in the universe. Consider the lesson learned. But perhaps it is time someone taught you that the universe is larger than your ancient empires, and there are some species that cannot be caged." The aftermath of the battle was more shocking than the battle itself. Over 800 alien ships had been destroyed or disabled. The survivors limped back to their home systems, carrying news of a defeat that shook the foundations of galactic civilization. Captain Lisa Brown, now promoted to general after her role in the victory, surveyed the wreckage floating in space around Proxima. The debris field contained technology from dozens of species, some of it more advanced than anything humans had ever seen. "Salvage everything," she ordered her recovery teams. "Every piece of alien technology, every intact computer core, every weapon system that still functions. We are going to learn how to build better ships." The political impact was immediate. Species that had remained neutral suddenly began requesting trade agreements with human colonies. Alien worlds that had been oppressed by the major powers started asking for human protection. The careful balance of power that had kept the galaxy stable for millennia was collapsing. Dr. Nancy White, humanity's new ambassador to the galactic, our I Am species, found herself overwhelmed with requests for meetings. Representatives from over 40 different civilizations wanted to discuss alliance with the humans, who had defeated the combined fleet. "They are not just impressed by our military victory," Nancy reported to Earth. "They are excited by the possibility of change. Many of these species have been waiting centuries for someone to challenge the established order." Back on Earth, President Carol Wright addressed both the human colonies and the watching galaxy. Her speech was broadcast on every communication frequency, translated into hundreds of languages, and transmitted to worlds that had never heard from their own leaders. Today, humanity proved that the galaxy does not belong to the oldest or the strongest, President Wright declared. It belongs to those with the courage to defend their freedom and the wisdom to offer that freedom to others. The response from the Galactic Council was swift and predictable. They declared humanity a threat to galactic stability and called for a complete embargo on trade with human colonies. But their authority was no longer absolute. Commander Jake Morrison, now serving as humanity's chief diplomatic officer, received messages from alien governments who quietly ignored the embargo. Trade continued, alliances formed, and the galaxy began to change in ways that the ancient empires could not control. The old order is dying, Jake told Admiral Hayes during a secure communication. The question now is what will replace it. We have proven that humans can fight and win. Now we need to prove that we can build something better than what we destroyed. The victory at Proxima had cost humanity dearly. Over 300 ships had been lost, and thousands of human lives had been sacrificed. But those losses had purchased something invaluable, the knowledge that humanity could not be stopped by force. As the news of the battle spread across the galaxy, species that had been silent for millennia began to speak. Worlds that had accepted their place as subjects of ancient empires started to demand their freedom. The galaxy was changing, and humanity had lit the fire that would burn away the old order. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the Defiant as his fleet prepared for the next phase of the war. The aliens would not give up easily. They would gather new fleets, develop new weapons, and try new strategies to stop human expansion. But they had already lost the most important battle. They had lost the battle for the hearts and minds of the galaxy. Too many species had seen that change was possible, that the ancient empires could be defeated, and that there were alternatives to accepting the limitations imposed by others. The reckoning had come, and humanity had emerged victorious, but the real work was just beginning. 5 years had passed since humanity's victory at Proxima. The galaxy was a different place now, and the changes were still spreading like ripples across the void. President Carol Wright stood before the Grand Assembly of the Free Systems Alliance, addressing representatives from over 60 different species in a chamber that floated in space. Near the galactic rim, when humanity was first rejected by the Galactic Council, we had a choice, President Wright said, her voice carrying clearly. Through the translation systems, we could accept their judgment and remain forever confined to our small corner of space, or we could prove them wrong. The chamber erupted in sounds that the translation systems rendered as applause, cheers, and expressions of agreement. But Carol knew that each species was responding in their own way. The crystalline Keth made musical chimes, while the reptilian Vorlich hissed their approval. Even young Zephyrians, who had broken away from their ancient hierarchy, added their voices. To the celebration, today, we gather not as subjects of ancient empires, but as equal partners in a new kind of civilization, Carol continued. A civilization where species are judged by their contributions, not their age. Where progress comes from innovation, not from controlling old trade routes. Admiral Nathan Clark received reports from across the galaxy while his expanded fleet patrolled the borders of Free Systems space. The numbers were impressive, but they told only part of the story. Humanity now controlled over 200 star systems, but more importantly, they had proven that rapid expansion was possible for any species willing to work for it. The Keth have established 17 new colonies in the past year, Nathan read from his daily briefing. The Vorlich have completed their first deep space shipyard. Even the Aquari Separatist faction has launched their own exploration fleet. What had started as human expansion had become something larger. Species that had been denied development by the established powers were building their own civilizations under human protection. The galaxy was no longer divided between rulers and subjects, but between those who embraced change and those who fought to preserve the old ways. Dr. Sandra Kim led the first diplomatic mission to the Helix Nebula, where her teams had discovered a cluster of species that had been completely isolated from galactic civilization. These races had never heard of the Galactic Council, never been told they were too primitive to matter, never accepted limitations on their growth. The Spiral Confederation has 43 member species, Sandra reported during her monthly briefing to Earth. They have been trading and cooperating for over 5,000 years without any central authority, telling them what they can and cannot do. The discovery had been revolutionary. The established powers had claimed that central control was necessary to prevent war between species, but the Spiral Confederation proved that cooperation was possible without domination. They want to join our alliance, Sandra continued, not because they need our protection, but because they believe in what we are building, a galaxy where freedom is the default, not a privilege to be earned. The economic transformation was even more dramatic than the political changes. Engineer Alex Turner's industrial complexes in the Galactic Rim produced goods that competed directly with products from the ancient homeworlds, but unlike the established manufacturers, human companies shared their technology freely with allied species. The old empires built their wealth by controlling resources and limiting competition. Alex explained to a gathering of trade ministers from allied worlds, "We are building wealth by expanding the market and encouraging innovation." The results spoke for themselves. Worlds that had been economically dependent on their ancient rulers were now prosperous trading partners. Species that had been forced to sell raw materials at fixed prices were now manufacturing finished goods for galactic export. General Lisa Brown's Voigard had evolved into something that no military strategist had ever imagined. Her forces included volunteers from dozens of species, each bringing their own tactics, technology, and understanding of warfare. "We are not building a bigger version of the old imperial armies," Lisa told her officers during a strategy meeting aboard the battleship Independence. "We are creating a military that represents the diversity and innovation of free civilizations." The Guards training programs were open to any allied species. Keth engineers worked alongside human technicians to develop new weapon systems. Vorlic pilots shared their knowledge of asteroid field navigation with human fighter squadrons. Even former enemies contributed to the Alliance's growing military strength. The crowning achievement of the New Order was the construction of New Terra, a massive space habitat that served as the capital of the Free Systems Alliance. Built from the combined efforts of 37 different species, it represented something that had never existed in galactic history. Commander Jake Morrison, now retired from military service but serving as New Terra's first civilian administrator, watched the daily bustle of the station's central hub. Ships from across the galaxy docked at the massive ports, carrying everything from Aquari deep-sea technology to Zephyrian crystal resonators. "My grandfather used to dream about humans traveling to other worlds," Jake told his assistant, a young Keth named Harmony, whose crystalline body sparkled with excitement. "He imagined humans working alongside aliens as equals. I think he would be amazed to see how far we have come." The transformation was not without challenges. The remaining members of the Galactic Council had not given up their attempts to restore the old order. Economic warfare replaced military action as the ancient empires tried to strangle the Alliance through trade embargoes and diplomatic pressure. But for every world that remained loyal to the old ways, to more joined the Alliance. The promise of freedom and equality was too powerful to resist, especially for species that had spent millennia as subjects of distant rulers. Trade Minister Rebecca Davis reported the latest statistics during the Alliance's quarterly economic meeting. Trade volume between Alliance members has increased by 400% in the past 2 years. Industrial output has doubled. Most importantly, the standard of living has improved on every member world. The social changes were equally dramatic. Species that had been forbidden to interact were now learning from each other. Hybrid technologies emerged as different civilizations shared their knowledge freely. Art, music, and literature flowed between worlds that had been isolated for thousands of years. Dr. Ellen Foster, the Alliance's first Minister of Cultural Exchange, oversaw programs that would have been impossible under the old system. Keth musicians collaborated with human composers to create entirely new forms of music. Vorlic philosophers debated ethics with Aquari scientists, while both species learned from human historians. "We are not just building a new political system," Ellen explained during a cultural summit on New Terra. "We are creating a new kind of civilization, one that celebrates diversity instead of fearing it." The military threat from the old empires remained real, but diminished. The Sil hegemony had lost half their member worlds to Alliance recruitment. The Zephyrian hierarchy faced constant rebellions from younger generations who wanted to join the human-led coalition. Even the Aquari were split between traditionalists and reformers. General William Carter, who had taken over military planning from Lisa Brown, prepared for conflicts that might never come. The old empires still have powerful fleets and advanced weapons, He warned during a security briefing, but they are fighting against the future. And history shows that the future always wins. As the 5th anniversary of the Proxima victory approached, President Wright prepared for the most important speech of her career. Representatives from over 100 species had gathered on New Terra to celebrate the anniversary and plan for the future. When we first declared our independence from the Galactic Council, we were one species fighting for our survival, Wright said as she looked out at the diverse crowd. Today, we are 100 species working together to build a better galaxy. The statistics were impressive. The Free Systems Alliance controlled over 1,000 star systems. Their combined population exceeded 10 billion sentient beings from dozens of different species. Their industrial capacity matched that of the remaining old empires combined. But the real victory was not measured in numbers. It was measured in the faces of young beings from across the galaxy who had never known a universe where their potential was limited by the circumstances of their birth. Commander Jake Morrison's final log entry captured the essence of humanity's achievement. They said we didn't belong among the stars. They said the void was not meant for creatures like us. They were wrong on both counts. The void belongs to everyone willing to work for their place in it. And we have proven that any species, no matter how young or small, can claim their share of infinity if they have the courage to reach for it. As Jake looked out at the bustling spaceport of New Terra, where ships from across the galaxy carried the dreams and ambitions of free civilizations, he reflected on how far they had all come. The galaxy still contained ancient empires that clung to their old ways. There were still species that accepted limitations imposed by others. But there was also something new, a growing coalition of civilizations that had chosen freedom over security, innovation over tradition, and hope over fear. The void between the stars was no longer empty. It was filled with the dreams of 100 species, the ambitions of countless individuals, and the promise that the universe truly belonged to those bold enough to claim it. Humanity had started this revolution, but they were no longer alone. The galaxy was changing, one star system at a time, one species at a time, one dream at a time, and the changes were just beginning.